My unhinged mother convinced me that stepdad and stepsister physically abused her. I almost went after them with law enforcement until I saw their Ring doorbell camera. I'm posting this because I genuinely don't know what the right move is anymore. I don't even know what's real or fake right now, but I need to figure it out fast because what's happening feels like the kind of thing that could ruin someone's life if I don't handle it correctly. And right now, that someone could either be my stepdad and stepsister or me. So here's what happened. 2 nights ago, my mom showed up at my apartment completely unannounced. I opened the door and froze because I barely recognized her. She had a huge cut on her cheekbone, her lip was busted, and there were obvious bruises around her neck and shoulders. I immediately pulled her inside and asked what happened. She was sobbing so hard I could barely understand what she was saying at first, but then it all came out in this chaotic mess. According to her, my stepdad attacked her during an argument. She said it started over something stupid and escalated fast. My stepsister, who I've always gotten along with, apparently got mouthy with my mom, calling her names and talking back. My mom said she tried to discipline her, nothing physical, just parenting, and my stepdad lost it. She said he punched her in the face, grabbed her by the neck, slammed her into a wall, and then threw her out of the house. She said she barely made it to her car. I was stunned, like genuinely sick to my stomach. I don't even know how to describe the feelings of rage and fear that hit me, because as much as I've never really been close to my stepdad, he's always been this quiet, reserved type. I've never once seen him lose his temper, and my stepsister, while she can be a little snarky sometimes, has always treated me with respect. But the injuries my mom had weren't fake, and she seemed terrified. She told me she didn't want to go to the police yet, not without someone there to back her up. She said my stepdad would lie, manipulate the story, and make her look crazy. That hit a nerve, because I've seen that happen before where the victim gets painted as the aggressor. I didn't want that to happen to her. I told her she could stay as long as she needed and started thinking through next steps. This all sounds simple on paper, but in my gut, I kept hesitating. Not because I didn't believe her. How could I not believe someone I've known my whole life, my mom of all people, but because something just felt off. For some context, I'm 23 now, but I moved out at 19 because things at home were always tense. Though not abusive as far as I knew. Still, I've seen my mom argue with everyone in her life. She has a tendency to be controlling and reactive, and she's not great at handling disagreements. Even when I was a teen, I noticed she'd go from calm to screaming in under 5 seconds if things didn't go her way. That's partly why I moved out so early. But this? Bruises? A split lip? Accusations of being beaten by my stepdad and stepsister? This was on a whole different level. I kept asking her if she had any kind of evidence. I wasn't doubting her, but I wanted something to protect her case if this went legal. She said no, there was no video, no witnesses, nothing, just her word and the bruises. I asked if I could take photos of her injuries just in case, and she got uncomfortable and said no. That struck me as odd. She had just asked me to help her get justice and back her up, but wouldn't even let me document what had happened. I tried to let it go and focused on just being supportive. She kept crying and telling me she had no one else to turn to. I sat with her all night while she recounted years of alleged emotional torment she said she'd endured from my stepdad, that he was always trying to pit her against my stepsister, that he was slowly trying to isolate her, that he was gaslighting her and making her feel insane. I didn't know what to think, but after hearing everything she told me, I started thinking seriously about calling the police on his behalf. At the very least, I wanted to confront him. But I also remembered something: I'm not a lawyer. I don't work in law enforcement, and false accusations can ruin lives just as much as real abuse. So I made a post in r/legal advice, asking what to do. Most people told me to tread carefully and to get some form of evidence before filing a report or confronting anyone. That's what gave me pause, because I realized, aside from my mom's word and her injuries, I had nothing. And I also remembered something. My stepdad's obsessed with his Ring doorbell camera. He's always sending me dumb clips of raccoons or neighborhood kids being weird. So I figured, okay, if something happened in front of their house or even near it, there might be a video. It was a long shot, but I figured it wouldn't hurt to go get it, as I lived in the same house before. Not a big deal, right? The next morning, I told my mom I was going to the grocery store. She looked nervous, but didn't say anything. In reality, I was driving to their house. I had my phone ready to record everything just in case things went sideways. I pulled up to the house, and everything looked normal. No signs of struggle. I rang the doorbell and braced myself for a confrontation. To my surprise, my stepdad opened the door calmly. He didn't look guilty or angry, just kind of confused to see me. I didn't hold back. I asked him what the hell happened, why my mom was at my place with bruises, and why she was saying he assaulted her. He looked stunned, and before he could even say anything, my stepsister came downstairs and told me to come inside. She asked if I was recording, and I told her yes. She nodded and told me I needed to see something. But before she showed me anything, I told my stepdad and stepsister what my mom had said and asked them directly about it. My stepsister calmly walked me over to their living room, grabbed a laptop, and pulled up their Ring account. She didn't try to argue or plead her case. She just opened up the files and said, "You need to watch this before you say anything else." And I did. I watched the footage without knowing exactly what I was about to see, and I swear to you, I felt my heart drop. The first clip was time-stamped from the night before my mom claimed the whole incident happened. It showed her standing on the porch with a bag in her hand, yelling at someone off camera through the front door. You couldn't hear the exact words, but you could see her pacing, waving her arms, and kicking at the bottom of the door. A few seconds later, the door opened and my stepdad stepped outside. He wasn't aggressive. He was talking calmly, even backing up a little as she got in his face. You could see his hands clearly open, non-threatening, even as she jabbed her finger in his chest repeatedly. Then, my stepsister appeared. She came out with her phone in hand, filming the interaction. That part stunned me. My mom hadn't mentioned any of that. My stepsister didn't say much in the video. She stood back, keeping her distance. At one point, my mom turned and started yelling at her, suddenly lunging forward like she was going to snatch the phone out of her hand. My stepdad stepped in between them, holding both hands up. No punches, no hitting, no pushing. Eventually, my mom turned, stormed off, and the video ended with her walking down the driveway shouting something at them. Again, unintelligible. But she looked enraged, not terrified. Then they pulled up a second clip from the next morning, about 6 a.m. This one made my blood run cold. It showed my mom standing in front of her own car, parked across the street. She had a makeup mirror out and was applying something to her neck. She reached into the trunk and pulled out a little plastic case. Inside were some kind of stage makeup or Halloween kits, whatever it was. I could clearly see her dabbing dark colors under her jaw and cheekbone. She would look down, smudge something, then lean into the mirror again. Then she stepped back and did something I can't even wrap my head around. She was self-harming herself full on like a crazy deranged loony, smashing her head over and over. Not hard enough to knock herself over or anything, but enough to make her skin flare red. Then she took a photo of her face, checked it, did it again on the other side, and posed in the mirror. After about 15 minutes, she drove off. I felt numb watching all of it. The silence in the room was unreal. My stepdad just sat down on the couch and waited. My stepsister looked heartbroken. I asked them why they didn't just go to the police themselves, and they both said the same thing. They were terrified of what she'd say. My mom has a history of twisting situations and using emotional manipulation to get her way. She's done it with extended family, old friends, even co-workers. And if she got out ahead of them with her story, they figured no one would believe their side. I asked why they didn't just send me the footage the moment she left the house. My stepsister looked at me dead in the eyes and said, "Because we didn't think she'd go this far, and we still hoped she'd cool off and come clean." They were giving her a chance to stop. They didn't know she'd already gone to my apartment and tried to rally me like some backup weapon, and I almost let her. I left the house in a fog. I didn't even say anything. I just grabbed my keys and drove back home. The whole ride, I kept thinking about how close I came to completely torching two people's reputations, maybe even ruining their lives over a lie. Over a story that wasn't just exaggerated, but completely made up. I couldn't believe it. I still can't, honestly. I just kept hearing her crying in my apartment, telling me she had no one, begging me to believe her, and she was playing me the whole time. When I got back, I walked in and found her lying on my couch watching Netflix like nothing had happened. She paused the show and asked if I brought back chips. I didn't say anything for a minute. Then I told her I had just come from her house. Her face shifted just slightly like a flicker of nervousness. I told her I saw everything. The ring footage, the makeup, all of it. She didn't speak, just sat there like a statue. Then finally she got up and went straight into my room, grabbed her purse and said she'd find somewhere else to go. No apology, no denial, no outburst, just complete calm, like she had just been caught cheating on a test or something, like it was no big deal. That made it worse. She walked out the door, and I didn't follow her. I haven't heard from her since. Since then, I've been trying to piece everything together, not just the lie, but why she did it. What was the goal? Sympathy? Money? Manipulation? Did she want me to attack them legally? Did she think if I confronted them violently, it would validate her claims? I've spoken to my stepdad since, and he said they're thinking about taking legal action, either filing a restraining order or even pressing charges for defamation or false reporting if it escalates. I don't blame them. I've seen how easy it would have been for her to convince someone else that her story was real. All it would have taken was a little less hesitation from me, and I would have been knocking on their door with cops or worse. I feel sick. I feel used. And now I'm stuck with this question: do I help them take legal action against her? Or do I stay out of it and let them handle it? I love my mom. As twisted as this all is, I do. She raised me. But I also watched her fake abuse injuries and manipulate her own son into almost helping her destroy two innocent people. I can't just forget that. There's one more thing, and I'm still processing it. I reached out to one of her old friends who distanced herself from my mom years ago. I just wanted to ask if this kind of thing had ever happened before. She hesitated at first, but eventually told me there were rumors about my mom making similar claims during her previous marriage, that she'd told different versions of the same abuse story to different people. The timelines didn't add up, and some folks stopped talking to her because of it. I don't know what to do with that information yet. I don't even know who my mom is right now. All I know is I need time, and I need to figure out what kind of damage control I owe my stepdad and stepsister, because even though I didn't press charges or show up with cops, I believed her, and I almost let that belief become action. I'll post again once I figure out the next steps, but right now, I feel like I'm standing in the wreckage of something I didn't even realize was burning. Update 1. It's been several days since I found out the truth about what my mom did. Since then, I've been living in this weird limbo where part of me is still trying to process how far she went, while another part has been scrambling to fix things with my stepdad and stepsister. But the damage had already started to spread in ways I didn't even notice until it was too late. Right after my mom left my apartment, I texted my stepdad to let him know she was gone. I also told him I wanted to come over again, not to talk, but to listen. I felt like that was the only thing I could offer at this point. Just shut up and listen. When I arrived, things were tense. The door opened slowly. My stepsister was the one who let me in, but she didn't say anything. She just walked back into the kitchen and sat down like she hadn't even seen me. My stepdad eventually came in, sat across from me, and placed his phone on the table. For a second, I thought he was going to play another video. Instead, he just stared at me and said, "You need to understand what you almost did." And then he laid it all out. Apparently, the day after my mom left their house, she called his job. She didn't just make a complaint, she told HR that he was violent, had a domestic abuse record, completely false, and that his teenage daughter was terrified to live under his roof. She sent them photos, the same ones I now know she staged, and demanded they take action, or she'd go to the media. He works in education, around kids, so a call like that could have destroyed him immediately. Luckily, his employer didn't react recklessly. They asked for an internal review and pulled him aside to get his statement. He was able to present the ring footage and back up everything with timestamps and recordings. Still, he told me HR told him flat out, if they hadn't had those videos, there would have been an automatic suspension while they investigated. It hit me then how close he came to losing not just his peace of mind but his livelihood over a lie. I asked him if he thought she was trying to ruin him. He said no, he thought she was trying to force a reaction, either from me, from him, or from his daughter. She wanted control, and when she didn't get it, she reached for the next manipulative tactic. He even said he half expected her to show up again, fake tears in her eyes, pretending the whole thing was a breakdown. That's how she's always operated, spin everything into someone else's fault, rewrite the story, and expect everyone to fall in line. But now she'd gone too far. My stepsister eventually joined the conversation. Her voice was flat, tired. She didn't yell or blame me directly, but she made it clear how much it hurt that I believed our mom without even checking the facts. She said she understood the instinct to trust a parent, especially a mom, but this wasn't the first time she'd seen her pull something like this. And it probably wouldn't be the last. What I didn't expect was what she said next. She told me she was considering filing for a restraining order, not just for her dad's safety, but her own. She said she'd started therapy again because of everything. The incident shook her not because she feared violence, but because of how powerless it made her feel. That hit me hard. I left that day knowing that nothing between us would be the same again, not for a while. I'd cracked something. I tried calling my mom the next day. She didn't answer. I didn't really expect her to, but I needed to hear her voice. Maybe to scream at her, maybe to beg for an explanation. I don't even know anymore. What I do know is that about 2 hours later, I got a text from her, but she sent it from an unknown number. It just went on about how she was dissatisfied with me and that I chose them over her. No context from a random number, but I know it was her. That tone was too familiar. The same passive-aggressive threat masked as a cryptic message. I stared at it for a full 10 minutes before deleting it. After that, I started warning people. I reached out to some mutual family members, cousins, aunts, people she might try to spin the story to next. I kept it simple. I told them I'd seen proof that the accusations weren't true, that she faked everything, and that she wasn't welcome to speak for me anymore. Some of them didn't respond. Some were shocked. One aunt told me flat out she didn't believe it, that my mom would never do that. I didn't argue. I just told her to be careful and keep some distance. Then came the fallout I didn't see coming. A friend of mine, someone who's known my mom casually for years, reached out and asked if I'd heard what happened at her workplace. Apparently, she tried pulling a similar story there, told a coworker that she'd been attacked by her ex-husband and stepdaughter and was looking into legal options. Word got around fast and HR apparently pulled her in for a talk because she was bringing too much drama to the office. I don't know what came of it, maybe nothing. But that alone told me she wasn't done. And she still hasn't reached out to me directly, not to apologize, not to explain, just radio silence. And my relationship with my stepdad and stepsister is damaged. Maybe not permanently, but enough to take time. My faith in my mom is shattered, and I'm constantly second-guessing how many other times I might have blindly believed something she told me just because it came from her. I keep running this moment over in my head the second she walked into my apartment sobbing, holding her neck like she was hurt, begging me to protect her. It felt real. She's that good, that convincing. She didn't just lie, she performed, and I almost acted on it. Right now I'm staying distant. I blocked her number. I left a note on her social account saying I don't want contact until she seeks professional help. I doubt she'll listen, but it's all I can do right now. My stepdad is talking to a lawyer, not necessarily to sue her yet, but to prepare documentation in case she pushes this further or spreads more lies. He wants to get ahead of it this time, not play defense again. My stepsister has already spoken to a counselor and is documenting everything too. They're protecting themselves, and I can't blame them. I'll admit it, part of me still hopes my mom wakes up one day and realizes what she's done, that she comes back and admits everything. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that's probably never going to happen. She doesn't think she's wrong. She thinks she's owed something, that everyone around her should revolve around her chaos, and if they don't, she'll force it. I don't know how to rebuild from here, but I'm going to try. Next step is figuring out how to face the rest of my family once the truth gets out completely. Because the peace won't last. Not with someone like her. Final update. It's been a while since I last posted, and things have been intense. A lot has happened, and honestly, I'm just trying to make sense of everything. Some things were resolved, but a lot of things still don't sit right with me. I've been thinking about everything that went down, how my mom reacted, how I reacted, and why we ended up in this mess. After the last update, I hoped things would calm down. They didn't. They got worse. And after that, things started to settle into a strange kind of normal that I wasn't sure I was ready for. But let's go back to the real aftermath of everything. I got a restraining order, which is only one part of it. You're probably wondering why we never pressed criminal charges for everything my mom did. It's a fair question, and honestly, it's something I've struggled with. There's no denying that my mom crossed some serious lines. She did a lot of stuff that could have led to criminal charges, and part of me wanted to hold her accountable for all of it. The problem was, every time I thought about it, I just couldn't bring myself to go down that road. Not because I didn't feel like she deserved it, she definitely did, but because I didn't want to drag myself and my family through that kind of mess. It would have been a long, drawn-out battle, and I wasn't sure I could handle it. My stepdad and stepsister supported me, but I could see how much it was weighing on them too. The last thing I wanted was for all of us to go through months or years of fighting in court, especially over someone who was already out of our lives, and I didn't want to have that kind of relationship with my family, especially my stepdad, who had been a rock through all this. When it came down to it, I decided to go for the restraining order instead of criminal charges for a couple of reasons. First, I knew that even if my mom did get arrested or face charges, it wouldn't fix anything. It wouldn't fix the fact that she had hurt so many people, or that she had tried to tear our family apart. Pressing charges wouldn't change the past, and I realized that what I really needed was closure, not punishment. I wanted the space to move on with my life, and not constantly be looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next bomb to drop. The restraining order gave me that, even though it wasn't perfect. The second reason I didn't press charges is a little more complicated. You see, even after everything that happened, I still had this tiny part of me that couldn't fully let go of the idea that she was my mom. It sounds stupid, but even though she'd done all these awful things, there was this lingering hope in the back of my mind that she would realize she was wrong and that maybe we could rebuild some kind of relationship. Maybe she would change. I know it sounds ridiculous, but part of me wasn't ready to fully sever that connection. I think part of me was still holding on to the idea of what should have been, not what actually was. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me backtrack a bit. After all the chaos with my mom and everything that went down between us, my stepdad couldn't take it anymore. He'd been trying for years to keep the peace between my mom and me. But when the situation with the restraining order and all the manipulation went too far, he reached his breaking point. He wasn't blind to what was happening. Over time, he'd seen how toxic my mom's behavior had become. She was controlling, vindictive, and unwilling to see the damage she was causing. When I started pulling away, he tried to stay neutral, but even he couldn't ignore the toll it was taking on their marriage. He'd always been the peacemaker, but that's a hard role to play when the other person isn't willing to compromise. A few months later, they filed for divorce. It wasn't a shock to anyone who'd been paying attention. He moved on fairly quickly, finding someone who wasn't involved in the mess my mom created. It was tough for me, but it was clear that he needed peace, and with time, I understood why he had to leave. A couple of weeks went by, and I started getting these weird, passive-aggressive texts from family members. It wasn't just my mom anymore. It was my aunts and cousins, people who I hadn't heard from in ages. They started sending these vague messages, nothing direct, but enough to let me know they were talking about me. One cousin texted me saying, "Family is forever, no matter what," and another told me to think about the good times. I could tell they were trying to guilt trip me into reconciling with my mom, or at least trying to make me feel like I was doing something wrong by cutting her off. I didn't respond to any of them. I just let it sit. I knew they didn't understand. I couldn't explain it all to them without getting into the details of everything that had happened. I wasn't ready for that. I still wasn't sure I wanted to share all the details with anyone outside of my immediate family. But then something happened that really threw me off. My mom showed up at my work, out of nowhere. She was standing in the parking lot, looking like she was waiting for me. I saw her from the window before I even got to my car. She was just standing there, pacing, looking like she was waiting for something to happen. I couldn't believe it. After everything that had happened, I never thought she would pull something like that. I went outside to confront her, and she immediately started crying like she was the victim. She was saying how she had no idea why I had abandoned her, and that all she wanted was to fix things. It was a mess. People were starting to notice, and I knew it wasn't going to be good for anyone if this continued. I told her to leave, but she wouldn't. She started getting more aggressive, saying I was under their control and being manipulated by my stepdad and stepsister. It was the same old gaslighting. I ended up calling security, and they made her leave. She didn't go quietly though. She kept yelling at me as she was escorted out. It felt like a nightmare. After she was gone, I sat in my car for a long time, just trying to calm down. My heart was racing, and I couldn't believe she had shown up at my work, trying to turn everything into another spectacle. That was when I realized I couldn't let her back into my life. No more second chances, no more hoping for a change. She had gone too far, and even though I didn't want to go the criminal route, I had to take some kind of action to protect myself. That's when I called my lawyer and filed for the restraining order. The lawyer helped me gather everything I needed: the text messages, the emails, the video from my security camera. We had more than enough evidence. Once the order was in place, my mom had no choice but to leave me alone. At that point, I was done. I didn't want to think about her anymore. I didn't want to keep fighting with my family or dealing with her manipulation. I just wanted peace. A few weeks after the restraining order, I started to feel a weird sense of calm. My family was still in turmoil, but I wasn't part of it anymore. My stepdad and stepsister were more supportive than ever, and we were starting to move forward. I know some people still think I should have pressed charges. I know there's a part of me that wishes I had done things differently. But at the end of the day, I couldn't keep dragging myself through that pain. I needed to move on with my life, and I wasn't going to let her keep controlling it. I haven't heard from her since that day she showed up at my work. The silence is eerie, but it's the peace I needed. Now I'm building a better relationship with my stepdad and stepsister, and I'm moving on from the chaos my mom caused. I don't know if I'll ever truly understand what went wrong with her, but I'm done trying to fix it. This is the end of this. It's not perfect, but I'm learning how to let go of the past and keep moving forward. Thanks for reading.